Hello, family, and welcome to Amazing Parents Network. I am the host of this show. My name is Ali Lankarani, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. I'm a clinical neuroscientist, and I am very happy that you have taken the time to be here with us tonight. We have dozens of experts that are going to be presenting in the upcoming months. These are called the Family Education Series. Please invite your friends and family to come and benefit from the resources and the expertise that is going to be presented here. We're glad to have you here. We're glad to have our experts. Enjoy tonight's presenter. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Welcome. Hello, Erica. It was lovely hearing you earlier there in the workshop, and I would love to invite you back on. You were so chatty. That was really good. I think I will have some really good things for you there as well. Welcome, Elaine. Great. Fantastic. Wonderful. While people are coming in, hello, Salvador. While people are coming in, I'm welcoming you to this curious workshop. Um, it's really about igniting that it will be a bit different from what we spoke about earlier there with Elizabeth. There will be some very different ideas in there, and also quite a lot chiming in with her. It's about finding your foundation in your relationship with your families, which also includes a relationship with you, which is not separate at all from one another, because our relationships usually mirror other relationships, all the relationships we have. May I just introduce myself while everyone's coming in? Oh. So my name is Simone Moir. I'm an intuitive coach. I'm work with families of all sizes and all backgrounds. I've worked with military personnel that were traumatized and had families to hold down. And I also work with the foster service to make kids that are traumatized able to build relationships with people that they're only temporarily with. It's probably the most challenging relationship setup that I've ever worked with. And with the tricks that I'm going to share you today, it really helps kind of like setting those foundations in any family, any size, any ages. I have a few slides to share because I also would like to get to know you. So I've been working intuitively since I think all my life. So I was born intuitive. And that really helps with parenting. I'm a mother of two. I have an autistic child who is 16, and I think we've worked that quite well. Um, we're we kind of like we do parenting together. I don't believe in parenting books. I believe in that the wisdom of parenting is within your family, and by having better conversations, we can actually become the parents that our kids need, and also that we need to become for us to feel mature and contributing, and that we don't regret later on how we raised our kids. So I would like to get to know you, if that's okay as well. I have a few questions here. Share, present. Ooh, while I'm getting my head around this technology, I think you see something. Do you see something? Just let me know in the chat that you see my screen. This is what we're going to do, building bridges and strengthening bonds. The curious path to connection, trust, and communication. Trust is really at the basis of what we do when we relate to each other. Trust with ourselves is already a tricky thing if you have not experienced trust with your family. I'm not really kind of like I can't scroll here. Why can I not scroll? It doesn't let me scroll. Um Cool. Well, I just forget about that for now. And let me see. No, it doesn't allow me to do that. Excuse the tech while I get my head around that. Yeah, here it scrolls. Okay, cool. So I would like to know from you in the chat where you're from. I know you can't type Erica, so you can, if you want to come on the chat in voice, you can. So, how many family members do you have, and how old are your children? Because by knowing that, I can help you help, jiggle this workshop a little bit, especially for you. So I have several questions, and you can just put the number into the chat. Is your family, or are you open to learning some new tricks? Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. Is there specific emotions that catch you off guard every time? Is it kind of like anger, or if someone withdraws, or kind of like, is it something like the same thing over and over again? Bit like a catch, which catches you always off guard, where you would like to find some ways of how to get out of there. Or is talking about emotions tricky? Maybe you haven't had a family upbringing where talking about emotions was a normal thing, so that this conversation with your children is also tricky. Or are you struggling with disconnect? Like your kids maybe growing a bit older, it's quite often with teenagers, they're just on screens and you can't really find how you can open up again. Or has there been trust issues? And do you need help, or are you just here because you're curious? Friends, runs a non-profit, families and communities. That's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone with kids here? Any ages? If you could let me know, that would be great. Because I rather speak directly to you and make this absolute gold for you than just do like a generic talk that I have kind of like prepared. Cool. Thank you. Well, let's just see how we can. That should be sharing. Yeah, so this is kind of like, just need to do it this way. Yeah, I've worked with all sorts of different families, small, big, and very big. One of my favorite families I worked with, they had 7 kids, 2 grannies, and an aunt lived with them. And just what they learned actually on these slides, that was very much what I taught them, really helped with all of those generations of kids, because they were all the way from 3 years old to 23. And well, while the 3-year-old didn't quite participate in this, it was learning by example and seeing how family issues can be solved around the kitchen table, and how stable, strong trust can come from that. So today we're gonna look at strong foundation. That sounds kind of like fairly generic. It really isn't. There's only 5 things you need to make growth inevitable. And those 5 things, I promise you can do today. It's just like sometimes we just don't know what they are. It's not shelter and food, even though that also comes under structure. And then inviting curiosity and conversations in, because by default, all kids want to connect. It doesn't matter what age. They all want to be loved, seen, and made important, and they all want to belong to something. These are base needs that we all have. So if you know how to package it, that they come for you to get it, that is really how you strengthen the bond, and how even when there's like a little bit more distance during teenage years, they come back again. And it's, as I think Erica mentioned that earlier, is that there was like a real closeness with one of her kids, and then the situation changed, and that time is just not made anymore. And when you have this really strong bond that we're kind of like working on in this workshop, I do 1.5 hours now, and then another 1.5 an hour on Thursday. I'm doing two different topics. The second one is on trust, which is especially good with teenagers or older kids. It's fantastic. And then you can kind of like let those gaps kind of like don't cause you anxiety. It just allows them to find themselves, which they need to do at a certain age. It gives them a bit of independence without you needing to have the, the stress coming up that they might disconnect for good. And that is kind of like our stress is what they feel, and then they feel that as neediness, and that's when they pull back. So it goes through that today as well. So, as a nice saying, our families are heaven picked, and our friends we can pick for ourselves. So, our families are really there for our spiritual growth and for our big lessons. We're from friends, we can walk away and everything, but with our families, it's really worthwhile sticking to. Same with our primary relationship that we choose to be with, because that's where the rubber meets the road and where we really grow into better people and also more, yeah, just all these lovely traits that we admire in others, we can have ourselves. So effective family synergy. That's like my ideal family. So that it doesn't matter what age the kids are. My boys are 9 and 16. And I have a partner. And we have lots of friends around the table quite often. Even today, just before I came here, we had a lovely friend of mine come with a 8-year-old child who just hit her. And that's a real trigger. And that has happened in the last several weeks, several times. So it's like an overstep boundary. And she just came and she just said, like, she's a single mom. I really don't know how to handle it. I'm really angry. This is not going to help. And I don't really see any way out. And we did what we always do. We just sat around the table and heard everyone out. So everyone got to say their own perspective, and then we kind of like echoed it back to see if we understood that right. And that brought so much love, so much understanding, and so much more trust in this relationship. We sent them off in a much better place than they arrived. And he volunteered his pocket money for the week because he realized that it really wasn't a nice thing to do. So rather than she having to take the pocket money away, it was like a really beautiful mutual growth experience just before I came here. I thought just perfect, just these lovely tools in action. So having this effective family synergy, and it doesn't matter how many members you have in your family, it enhances learning because it enhances looking at things from different perspectives. And it doesn't matter what you look at, you can only see one side. So unless you have another person that can tell you about the other side, you're blind to the other side. And that really helps you expand your brain and your awareness that what you see isn't all there is. That's the most important thing. Then the resilience to face challenges. So not to be afraid when mistakes happen and to just go, okay, I've made a mistake. How can I recover from that? And that depends on ages, how we can do that. We go more into that later. There's a really nice little anecdote of how I grew up. I grew up on a farm with two grannies, an aunt, an uncle, my brother, and I. And my parents did emergency fostering. I don't know if you know what that means, but it basically means there's a doo-doo in a house, usually violence, and the kids get taken away by the police or the authorities, sometimes in the middle of the night, and they would come to our house. And my parents were absolutely ingenious. All they did was loving them. And I didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't really like it because these kids were really badly behaved. One tried to set our house on fire, and they stole and they lied, and they were just really badly behaved kids. I would have never gotten away with that. So, and my parents always said, like, well, you got all you needed when you grew up. These ones didn't even get love. Let's just give them love and see how they turn out. And actually, quite a lot of them, they came to my wedding and we're still in contact. And pretty much every single one of them said that even just spending a few days, a few weeks in our house totally changed their life because they didn't even believe that love was possible. And if you can't believe that love is possible, forgiveness and trust is possible, how do you want to build it in your life? So it's up to us to learn those skills for us and then to nurture our children. So if you didn't get them when you grew up, first of all, try to reinstate them with yourself, your relationship with yourself. And that's what we look at today as well. You become a higher achiever when you have shoulders to stand on. If you have a tribe that cheers you on, if you have, someone that fans your flames, your hard flames, and that is really, really important. So you go much further with much more confidence. You form better relationships in the future because you have fantastic tools. It reduces stress on your nervous system. So when you made a mistake, you don't need to fear for your life. You don't need to think that the world ends, and you don't need to hide it. You don't need to lie. When we did family councils around the table when I was a kid, my dad would ask, what mistake did you make today? And it was really clear, and we were raised in a way that that was a good thing. Because if you made a mistake and we're all around the table, it saves everyone else around the table to make that mistake again or as well. So it was so beautiful. And then when no one came up with a mistake that they made, he would say, well, then you haven't leaned yourself out enough. Go and make some mistakes. It's really important. You need them to grow. And it's just like I feel so blessed that I grew up that way, and I can infuse that joy of making mistakes into other families, and just to not be so harsh, because how on else do you learn? You learn by falling over. You learn walking by falling over, and you learn everything else by making mistakes. Important is that we can reflect on them and learn from them quick, so we don't need to make them over and over and over again. That's quite important. It's anti-aging. Why would it be anti-aging to parent like that? You have less gray hair. Exactly. You don't pull your hair out. And with a bit of humor in parenting, it goes a long way. And if you have wrinkles, you have the wrinkles in all the right places. They're your smiling wrinkles rather than your frowning wrinkles. It's so anti-aging. And also because you actually really converse with your kids and you kind of like walk in their shoes. Well, that's shaves years of you, because you can actually live how they live for a bit, and that keeps you young. Like my granny was 99 years old, and she was young at heart, and she very much lived by that, understanding the youth, understanding their issues, because they're very different from our issues. And schooling is nothing like when I went to school. When I talked to my teenager, oh my God, am I glad that I didn't need to go to school now. Increased creativity. Increased creativity equals increased intelligence. Because by being more creative, you use more synapses in your brain. And it again enhances learning, but not just learning, actual intelligence, applied learning, outside of the box thinking. And it boosts your motivation and confidence. Like I know lots of kids in my school that loved coming home to my home to get in. Sometimes they even dragged their family to my home to do a family circle, because it was just so much easier to do it our way than to have this whole resentment thing and hanging doom and gloom over you for so long. We were able to let things go quick as soon as a lesson was learned. And I think that's not in the list, but actually for me, that was probably my best thing, is when the lesson was learned and integrated and it was shown that you actually changed, it was forgotten. It's just like so good. It didn't just hang over you. And that is like this embracing with effort. There is an effort behind it. It's not effortless. So you do need to actually pay attention, but it's playful learning. And it's the leaning into the discomfort, into the mistakes, into the shame, into the blame, and the challenges that really make you so strong. So this is a gold that I'm going to share with you today and see if we can get a little discussion around that. So there's 5 things we need to make growth inevitable. Okay, and these, I just scroll down, just look at just the graph. You don't need to do the reading thing. So there are 5 things. They're freedom, enough freedom to make mistakes, and there's structure, which is also kind of like control. We will unpack them all a bit. There's connection, and there's significance. And the 5th one, which is the most important, and I work a lot, like I'm a best-selling author for a book that's called The Empowered Butterfly Method. It's a suicide prevention book. And I have studied on that topic for years and years. And one of the most important things to keep you out of depression, even if it's bad, is to contribute. If we have a little bit of time at the end, I'll tell you a beautiful anecdote of that one, how it really kind of like shaped life and created a legacy for someone that was ready to take their own life. So if you just write on your pen and with your pen and paper, on a piece of paper if you can, so there's like the 6 things, like the growth becomes inevitable when the other 5ths are done. So there's certainty, which is also structure. So it's something you can rely on. And there's variety, which is freedom, which is on the other side. Connection and significance. Connection is being strong together. Significance is being alone, is being separated. And contribution is giving. Growth, we all know, otherwise you wouldn't be on this workshop. So I would like you to just put numbers next to those. So there will be a second number after we unpack them. So out of 10, no, out of 5, forget the growth just now. We just make it easier. What if 5 is kind of like full house for that one, and 1 is kind of like doesn't quite feature enough? How much structure do you have? How much control do you assert in your parenting? And how much freedom and variety do you give? So which one is a stronger one? Out of 5. First of all, stay horizontally. That's enough for now. And then for connection, how much togetherness, like teamwork, and how much, in a beautiful way, egocentric independence do you have or do you foster in your family? And then contribution, is it more like a 1? Kind of like you give something to World Vision once a month, like the bank transfer? Or is it actually contributing, being out there, making change and letting your kids watch? That would be a 5. Got that? Cool. We'll come back to that. Okay. So let me just see who's here. Exit that. Okay. So far, how are you getting on? Let me just see if there's anyone in there. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's beautiful. Two girls, 16 and 17. Well, you have your hands full. That's like hormone heaven. I hope this will really help you, because as the kids go older, you will see on there some, just a moment, 19, 17, 15. Cool. Well, that's, yeah, that's painful if someone doesn't talk to you, but I have a trick for that as well. If you stay tuned, I have a beautiful, beautiful remedy for kids that do not want to talk to you and do not want to engage. You might remember that I mentioned that I'm an intuit. I can actually see energy. Um, so if I were to see you on this lovely screen, if you were to come up, I would see if it resonates with you. And I would see, oh, hello. Because I work on Zoom all the time to work through these things. And I'm not quite being able to tune in with people that are not on the camera, that I don't know, and I have absolutely no relationship. Thank you, Erica, for joining me. And I can also see if what you say is nonsense or not. And it's really, and my children are angry with me for that because they said, "Oh, that's not fair. No other parent can do that." It's sort of like I usually don't call them out on it, and I just knowingly smile. It's like, you and your lie detector tests. So I'd sometimes put my hands over their heads just for the fun of it, right? But they know that I know, and it must be very difficult to have me as a mother. But they give me a good challenge as well, the two of them. So, but it really, really helped working with foster kids because they don't know if they lie anymore or not. They have no idea if it's a story they tell or reality. And sometimes they are drugged up. I had kids show up with Valium in my sessions, and I can still see their energy. And I think they really found solace in that because I brought them back home because I knew where their truth was. And that's what I do with menopausal women as well. So I mainly work with menopausal women now as a coach. It's just like the hormones just mess with you. And with your kids at a hormonal age, I have some good stuff to share with you, I think, because it doesn't matter if it's a hormonal female in her 50s or if it's someone in their 16, 17 around. It's the same. And boys also have hormones, and boys really need that separation. And there's a really nice thing because there are teenagers around here. Let's talk about teenagers more than little kids. Are you okay with that? Are you good with that? Yeah. Significance is being alone. That's correct. Is so they can see and hear themselves. If you have a big family, there's a lot going on out there. It's like, have you ever heard about the good opinion of others? The goo, right? The goo is when you're not good at separating yourself. So it's like the school is full of goo, and then you come home, and then your mom's full of goo, and then your dad's full of goo, and everyone's just full of goo, right? Good opinion of others. And unless you can separate yourself from that and go like, interesting that they think that way, but actually, I don't agree. Well, and that disagreement is so important for life. Can you see that? You see it, Erica, right? Right?
I do.
So
Can I comment on that? Because I
please do.
actually,
Please play
I will
with me.
say
Yes.
I've never heard that before, but I love it. And no understanding that this goo exists is new for me. And not feeling responsible for making sure all the goo is there for everybody. And like, it's great. So I do want to hear more, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So people that wear the right clothes, do the right things. So that the good opinion of others validates them, right? So if your kid would always do as you like, they're more likely fall into the trap of the goo. So that resistance that you get from your children, when you understand that that's good, healthy boundaries, they don't know how to do healthy, they don't know how to do that yet. So it's a bit clunky. They will walk all over your feelings, right? It's not nice, doesn't feel good. But if you can keep that sanity in your head to know, okay, they're really stroppy no, or they're not talking to me at all, right? Gives them a much higher chance to not get drowned in goo. Goo is sticky. Goo is heavy. Goo is, it draws you down. It stops you from growing. It stops you from expressing yourself. It's like prison. It's like keeping it up with the Joneses. It's not, there's no happiness when you're to the neck in goo. And sometimes, and as hard as that is, your kid just throws all of your good opinions and everyone else's good opinions out of the window to just go, I just need to kind of like free myself from this goo. That's significance. That is the most important thing to get under your belt as a teenager. And that's why they are so impossible to be with, right? So the Native Americans and many old cultures have sussed it out. They know how to deal with teenagers. Are their teenagers better behaved? No, they're not. Funny, huh? Why would they? Like, teenagers are supposed to be impossible. So if your teenager is very pleasing and does nothing wrong and goes, yes, mommy, that's when you need to worry. Erica?
Yeah, I do not have a child that does that, but which is great.
How lucky are you?
Well, I raised them that way. I think I really wanted them not to get stuck in the goo, but my husband is stuck in the goo. And so there's this, and I was stuck in his goo, and now I'm out of it. I'm getting out of it. But
It's a
that
trap.
separation is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we all need to get out of goo in menopause. Not that I'm mentioning that there's maybe some hormones going there, but if you're in someone else's goo in menopause, it will hit you. It will either kill you or you kill the other.
So it was killing me and I got out.
Very good. So the goo was never good, right? The goo was never the right thing to be in. But sometimes it takes us beyond teenage years. Sometimes it takes us into our 50s till we realize that the goo always suffocated us. And that's our next chance after teenage years, is to get out when you're menopausal and you're not mad. It's just your instincts going, get out of the goo.
I will say I did a 3-day silent meditation retreat. That was the first time I realized, and I didn't have the words, but I was so buried under goo that I had no idea how to listen to myself. And that was the first time I really, really noticed it.
Yeah. Goo is noisy, right?
It's all encompassing. You spend all this time trying to hold it in your hands and carry it, and it's oozing. And that is if you think about it like slime, trying to keep that in your fingers and holding on to it, it's a task that is not possible. But yet
It's worse. It's like treacle. You know treacle?
Yeah.
So
I don't know if
it's
I know the
sticky.
I've heard of it.
It's like golden syrup in America or something like that.
Like honey.
Yeah, but nothing good to it. Honey has some goodness to it. It's just poisonous sugar syrup.
Oh, yes.
No good for anything. And that's why a lot of people hold on to weight. If you can
Hello.
let go of the goo, you let go of the weight.
Yep. And
It's
stuff.
amazing. Yeah.
Stuff was my also like clinging to the stuff because I didn't know how to see myself. So I kept the stuff to hold on to the stuff to
Well, the
see
stuff sticks
myself.
to you. The stuff sticks
It
to you
did
with the
stick to
goo.
me. You got it. I love
It's
this.
amazing. Clutter, the whole lot. It's amazing.
Yep.
And that's really all I do when I work with teenagers or menopausal women is free them of the goo. Denise just joined. And I wonder if you should do a little recap on the goo. Are you guys okay with that? Let's just check when that Denise can hear us. She's still connecting to the audio. I'm not sure. Might go back to the slide of the, did you hear about the 5 ingredients for growth? Have you heard about that before, Erica?
No, that's all new for me as well.
See, I will make it so easy for you in the end. It's not going to be
Yeah.
rocket science. Because I
Yeah.
work with menopausal women, they don't have the bandwidth. So I
Well,
usually
the
make things.
irony, it's perfect because I am actually changing my career and going into coaching for menopausal women because I know there's such a deep need. We, yeah, we need to take care of ourselves, and we're
Yes,
learning how to do
yes,
that at this
yes,
point in our lives
exactly.
sometimes.
And unfortunately, because we have our kids later nowadays, quite often, our menopause and our teenage kids, they come together at the same time. It was not meant to be that way. Denise, if you could please put into the chat how many children you have and what ages they are. Because so far we have mainly older kids, like teenage kids, and that's kind of like what the talk's a bit about. But I can kind of like, if you have small ones, I can weave it in there. I have one each. I have a teenager and I have a 9-year-old, and I work with lots of little kids. I've taught in nursery and all sorts of places. So it's they all fit in. Oh, so we have 11, 21, and 31. Yay! So we stay on track with our talk. We will give you a little recap and of the 5 ingredients you need to make growth inevitable. Would you like to hear about that, Miss Denise? And I find the slide. Yes. Oh, congratulations on the grandbaby. Nothing better than being a grandparent. Apparently, I'm not a grandparent, but I have grandparents and they just love it. So we have 5. And so if you look at the growth there, actually I go to the other one because that was just to score. This one here. So we need 5 things to make growth. It's not even difficult. Like everyone goes on the growth mindset and all that. It's natural. You can't shake it if you keep in mind these things. And the beautiful thing is you're never too late. Never. This didn't need to be fed with the mother's milk or anything like that. I never got mother's milk. And it's really funny. I'm a yogi and I tell everyone that they should try with the mother's milk. And I always tell them here, I never got a drop of mother's milk and I turned out just fine. I have the strongest immune system that you will ever see. I'm saying I love my mother more than anything. So don't put the pressure on. If it doesn't work, it's okay. So don't put the pressure on with the parenting either. But I certainly would rather parent knowing this than not knowing this. It makes it a bit easier because you know that if you do these 5 things right, and I will make it super easy for you at the end to do it right, you pretty much got the basics covered and they can't come back at you and sue you for bad parenting. Impossible. So you deserve a medal after this. So we have 5 ingredients. Freedom, which is like letting them loose, allowing them to make mistakes, giving them their way sometimes. And structure is rules, times. This is what we do as a family, the non-negotiables, and all that. That's your foundation, trying to get the dance between them right. That is quite fun. So as long as you can see it as fun and as a dance, you will always fall off. You will always kind of like not quite get it right. But it's a bit like my granny used to be a great chef, but she never wrote down a single recipe. It's like, oh, just a bit of that. Oh no, that's not enough. Let's put a bit more in. It's like, how can you follow that? So there isn't a recipe. You need to go with your own kid, and every kid is different. My kids are like cheese and chalk. Connection. Connection is together time, actually team. And significance is the opposite. It's like stepping away from the team and feeling your own 2 feet under your under your belly, your own 2 feet under you. And then a family thing that can't be missed, and we so often miss, is contribution. And that is to society or another or an animal or anything that's not you. And it's not because you get your pocket money raised when you do it, or you don't get bribed for it. It's actual proper contribution, doing it out of the goodness of your heart. And that is a skill that's priceless, which I will reveal in a little bit why that is. So if you can just, Miss Denise, if you can just put these words on a piece of paper like that and just rate your family style, your parenting style. How much structure and how much freedom do you have? 1, not having any. 5, having loads. So just compare the 2 of them. So certainty is structure, variety is freedom. Just give each a number. Then we go to connection. Maybe now that you know a bit more about it, you want to go back and see if you maybe want to change the numbers a bit. Significance is kind of like letting your kids be themselves, their own authority. And then contribution, how much you do that. So if you do like no charity work at all, it would be a 0. I hope no one does that. So I'm sure we are all lovely people that help other people out. A 1 would be a bank transfer to some kind of charity that just is automatic and your kids don't even know about it. And the 5 would be working at the soup kitchen or actually really helping someone. Right. So there was a surprise that about significance there earlier. We just go through all of them. So structure, you probably heard about the base needs like shelter, food, safety. Like that's under structure. That is structure. And the rules that are born from values. So they foster a feeling of safety, not just like rules that should be or are unfounded. They need to be deeply rooted in your values, rules, to really kind of like work as a good structure. Routines that create calm. It's just, this is what we do in the morning. We brush our teeth, have a shower, whatever it is. Just like routines that create calm is a good structure. And support that can be relied on. If you crumble, I have you. That's structure. Also, money is structure. Money talks are structure. Feeling safe, having pocket money, giving in a reliable way for whatever has been agreed on. I personally give my kids a part of the pocket money just because they're my kids. They don't need to, it will never be taken away from them. Never. Because I learned that mistakes are really important from a really young age. And so that part of the pocket money, they get just for breathing, just for having their heart beating. So and they like it because none of the other kids in school have that. So they always get their pocket money kind of like taken away, and it's like no, as long as you're willing to work with me on that, that's fine. This is what you get. This is what you get. The rest has to do with good school performance, contribution, and being reasonable, kind of like things like that, helping out the neighbors and things like that. But like, it's good to give them a chunk of money that they actually can budget with. You know, how on earth do you want to make mistake with money if you don't have any? You know, I didn't grow up with very much money, but I always had pocket money enough that I could make a mistake with. And I'm very good with money, and my kids too. If you don't have enough money to make a mistake with, what's the point of pocket money, right? And the base needs are met, so you can feel safe. So there's food on the table. There's shelter that's not falling apart or full of mold. You know, we live in Scotland. It's very damp here. Quite often you live in moldy environments. You need to look after your kids. You need to make sure it's okay where they live. So the space of freedom, there needs to be some slack, you know, and what we talked about just earlier is a desire to break out, not just out of routines, also out of relationships. So I'm sure you all had your kids say, I hate you, right? I'm sure I'm not the only mom that heard that. Have you had your kids say, I hate you? Hands up. Many times. So that is them practicing significance. They try to break the bond to see if you still love them. It's very, very important. It's a tricky thing, and that's how you get them back. But it's amazing. So let them break the bond, but don't break off your side of the bargain. There's more tricks to that, because we have a bit of disconnect here that was shared. There is a desire to test that, and I was just talking about the Native Americans when Miss Denise came in, and the Native Americans make sure. Let me just stop that. Cool. Native Americans make sure that their kids, when they get to teenage age, that they have an initiation rite. Have you heard about that? No? It's like something that's for men, it's something that's really scary. It's like sleeping in the jungle, fending for yourself for a couple of weeks or something like that. You know, it's like, or like walking over burning coals, or like there's quite a few breaking arrows with your throat. And it's like the whole tribe's around, and you need to go through that fire, which is like a near-death experience. And actually, there's research on that one. I'm German by nature, even though I'm this intuitive, like fairy-like being. I'm still German, and I love research. Love it. And they wouldn't let me to work with military personnel or with the foster service if I wouldn't have like the certificates behind me. I got them. So it's like there is a need in a male teenager to test the boundaries of life, like a near-death experience. Do we provide that for our kid, or do we let society provide that for our kid with drugs, alcohol, kind of like stupid dare games that could cost their life or a limb, right? Or like, what do we do as a society to meet that need, beside telling them to stay safe and out of trouble? It makes no sense for a teenage boy to stay out of trouble. Trouble is what they want. Not every teenager, but a teenager with their male essence, dominant, they will want to not stay out of trouble. Does that make sense, Erica? Yeah? Denise, are you with me? Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Fantastic. MS, I don't know how to address you. Miss S, Mr. S. If you could give me a name, if you could also give me the ages of your kids, that would be super cool. Yeah. So that kind of like the teenage mystery, right? Does that make sense there? Yeah. So how can we provide that significance, that separation, and that needing to have that edgy experience to our children without them harming themselves or others? Oh, hi Maria. Good. I know, Maria. It's always nice when you're in America and there's someone showing up from just around the neighborhood. Maria is a dear friend of mine. Thank you very much for coming and supporting me today. Yes. So this significance or this disconnect from the family, that like telling them that they hate you or even not want to speak to you, is completely natural. Yeah. So I wrote a book on suicide prevention, maybe a good one for you to check out. The book is for the one that supports the one that's in trouble, because the one that's in trouble doesn't read a book. We have a free method for that. It's called the Empowered Butterfly Method. It's on Amazon worldwide, easy, like on Kindle free. So, and it's really, really good. Of course, it's good. I wrote it. So. Great. Let's go back to our screen share here. We're talking about the 5 ingredients that you need for inevitable growth in your family or in yourself. So if you were not to have a child, because I work a lot with childless women, there isn't such a thing as a female that's not a mother. How come? It's a riddle. No, it's not a riddle. Is it a riddle? Elaine, do you know? Everyone is a mother of their inner child or the father of their inner child. That's a primary parent that you are being an adult. So all of this can be applied to your inner teenager, to your inner child. Just so you know, right? I teach exactly the same thing to childless mothers, and they can work through their past relationships and claim themselves and make those beautiful, trusted relationships with themselves years and years later in their 50s, no problem. It's beautiful. So those 5 things are structure, which is your rules and your boundaries, where you can feel held in and not squashed by. If it's too much, you have this helicopter parent or that highly controlling parent, you get squashed by it. And if it's too little, you fall through the gaps. You just feel like no one has your back. It's very vulnerable and it creates anxiety. So me being a German parent, I'm probably quite strong on the structure, but I also really love to give my kids freedom. Like freedom is very much celebrated. I dare them to go out there and make mistakes. I love them going out there and just pushing the boundaries a bit. I have a lovely rule which my kids love: obey the law, bend the rules. So if you're smart enough to know how to bend rules and get away with it, well, you get extra pocket money from me. So, maybe not very wise decision, but to share that, but it works for me. It worked fine. My 16-year-old is great, absolutely amazing. And he's working on his significance just now. Significance is being enough by yourself, even if your family's not there. And sometimes we need to prove it, because if we had this wonderful connected childhood, sometimes we have been so clever and we know how to do all these, but we've read all the good books on bonding and all that. That's when they really need to break loose, because they don't even know who they are when you're not there. And sometimes they just need to just not speak to you for a while. And that's easier tolerated as a parent when you know that that's the point. There is a need in that they might have not developed earlier enough. Cool. So next one is connection. We all need love. And that's the beautiful thing of your kids. Even though they say, I hate you, actually, they know they need your love. They love your love. They love your presence, and they love your attention. And they love to know that you have their back no matter what. There is no human being that can resist that. It's like cookie for the soul, cookies for the soul. It's how we get them, which is not by being needy and telling them what they should do. It's just by going, as a teenager, letting them go and becoming the counsel and advisor. The difference is, for the counsel, you need to ask to call the counsel as a kid. So the advisor gives you advice without you asking. Does that, you're laughing there, Erica? I see that. There's a light bulb moment, right? So,
well, and it's a balance. It's hard to know sometimes when to do which.
mm-hmm. Well, at a 17-year-old, telling never works. Never.
No,
So that's an
no.
easy one, right? Just skip that
Yeah.
and just say, if you want some advice on that, or if you would like a sounding board, I'm here. Zip it. Walk
Yep.
away.
Yep.
Right? So, and you know, and I saw you in the other course as well. You're not new. You're not a new parent. You've been around the block. So this chimes with you. This will hopefully resonate with you and just enforce a bit more of what you already do. And we see if we can make it a little bit easier for you as well. So team play, feeling loved. And that's where the 5 love languages come in from. I don't know if you know them. 5 love languages. You can Google it. Every person, including every kid, has a preferred love language. Mine have 2 different ones. Like I can't, if I do what I do to my older one, to my younger one, he will not feel loved, just annoyed, and vice versa. So there's not, get to know your kid. And that's where this curiosity comes in. Get to know your kid's love language and just speak that. Especially when they're disconnected, like you have absolutely no contact, maybe not, but like maybe you can, in a clever, creative way, kind of like tease that out a little bit. It's that deep emotional bond that people really want, that you look for it all your life. You look at it in a relationship and you can't find it. Why? Why can you not find that in relationships? Anyone knows? Why do we go around dating all these lovely men and marry them and then it doesn't work out?
If they're not happy within themselves.
Oh, if we try to find another one to make us happy, it will never work. If we try to build trust with someone without us being able to trust ourselves, it won't work. If we can't give the other one space to be themselves because we have this need for connection, it won't work out. If we can't allow the other one to make themselves significant and the hero and just let them be and give them the man cave or whatever it is, you know, that significance, if we feel like we're left behind for them doing their own thing and it resonates in us as being left out, we can't build a strong relationship. And without having deal breakers, actually saying, this is my boundary. Strong, loving, self-loving boundaries, you'll never find a good relationship. And sometimes you learn that very late in life. And sometimes a very late in life relationship is the best one we can find because we've learned to clean up the relationship with ourselves. Does that make sense? And when you have these 5 ingredients for the cookie or the cake, every other relationship becomes like baking powder. It just makes it kind of like rise. You know, the other person, all they have to bring to the party is a baking powder. Everything else you already have. You can make a pancake yourself, but can you make a big birthday cake yourself? No, you can't. For that, you need a loving relationship, sex and all of it, right? It doesn't really work just on your own. It's a harder spiritual challenge, but that's where the candles are put on top. and that it is magnificent when it works, and it's terrible when it not works, and it's a mixed bag at all times, because we always kind of like work within that to kind of like find the right balance of the recipe. So the contribution thing, that is kind of like the number 5. And I really wanted to go deep on that one because it's the most important. It is an antidepressant. It's the strongest antidepressant there is contributing something to someone. And I have a lovely anecdote. I don't want to name any names. So it's lovely Annie, who used to go to church. She was a woman of faith. And then she fell. She was old. She was in her 70s. And she broke her hip. And she was very rich. She was born rich. She was always rich. She's never really had to work. So she always worked kind of like with the church and kind of like contributed. But when she broke her hip, she ended up in a wheelchair. And she was pretty overweight beforehand, and that really didn't help with the recovery. So while she had the money and she sorted out her big house with ramps and everything, and she had like someone that helped around the house, several people that helped around the house, she turned really depressed. She was miserable, and she was thinking of ending her life. The only thing that she kind of like still did was she had a greenhouse in the garden where she was taking cuttings from a really special desert rose that she had. And she was really good at making those cuttings. So there were like loads of cuttings in that. And she didn't really know what to do with them. There were just loads of them. She was really good at it. But, you know, you can only have that many cuttings. But what she always liked doing was writing. She was a writer, reading and writing. And she loved poetry. And she read poetry and wrote poetry. So a friend from the church came to visit her and looked around, and it was just like going to Scrooge's house. There was just nothing nice in the house. It was just the energy was wrong. Her energy was horrid. It was just not nice. And the only thing nice this person that came to visit her could find was these cuttings that were doing exceptionally well in the summer house outside. And he thought for a moment of how to help her, because he did know that she had just no more will to live. And she was kind of like too young to actually just die. There was nothing wrong with her. She was just miserable and grumpy. So his suggestion was to get the newspaper every day. And it was a small neighborhood, it wasn't a big city. And to check if there were any weddings, any birth announcements, or any deaths, and to just write a poem or a card to these strangers and to report one of those little plans and let it be taken to those people by the driver. So she did that for like 3 months. And she felt already happier because she got letters back and she got visitors to say thank you. And everyone just like, so she got a little reputation of being this lovely angel that just sends these beautiful gifts everywhere. So then this person moved away from the area. And 3 years later, he got the news that she died. She died of natural circumstances. And he went to the funeral. It was like a state funeral. Everyone and their dog came, and everyone had just nice things to say about her. And that actually was the only reason why she didn't kill herself, which she found out later in a letter to the man who suggested the flowers, is she didn't want to kill herself and no one comes to the funeral. That would have been her worst nightmare. So this way, she died of natural circumstances, and it was just the most amazing party of gratitude she could have imagined. That is what contribution can do. And that is important, to get us out of our own misery and out into the world. So important. So I've promised you to make these 5 things kind of like a bit easier rather than like every single one like super big. So this is kind of like the minimal requirement, the Smurf, the sanity check for busy parents, really. So for the freedom part, the freedom leg of the equation, the freedom ingredient, you need to tend your soul, and you need to let your kids tend their soul. It's so important. It's play and them deciding on their terms if they want to connect with you or not. Then there is a M for mental. And that's just like a mission statement when you get up in the morning. I will make logical and rational decisions today. So best I can. So, but it is really, it's like nearly like a self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of like maybe even write it down a few times or write it on your mirror, on your hand. I will make logical and rational decisions today. And whenever you realize you don't, you kind of like take a little breath, a little moment, and see if you can make that happen. It doesn't mean that you succeed all the time, and that's all good. The emotional, the E for emotional, is being vulnerable with another person, like sharing actually how you really are with social media and all sorts of things. Like, it's not always easy. I have my bestie, who's also in this room, who I can be that with. I can be real with her. So I don't need to be the coach and the yoga teacher and the intuit and the all that. I can actually just be me, and it's amazing. And I thank you dearly, and you know who you are. And that is true connection. That is connection. Holding the bucket for one another, how we call it. Yeah, and truly feel with one another. Relational is the contribution. It's a check-in 2 ways, asking how another person is doing and therefore giving them significance. So instead of just going, how are you, is actually really pausing and being there, being that. So it's 2 birds with 1 stone. You make someone else significant, you make yourself feel significant, and you know you've contributed. It's amazing. And the last one is just do yourself a favor, have some focus, have a schedule and some structure. And please do embrace your self-loving no. You know, it's the most important thing. Without structure, life is hard. So if you try to avoid structure, befriend it. You know, see if you can just bring a little bit in there and see how that works out. And this is my last slide, just a moment. Yep. So we're getting towards the end here. This is my lovely turnarounds for you. So you will get the slides afterwards if you email me on welcome@meltmystress.com. welcome@meltmystress.com. I can send you those slides, but they can also go into the package. We need to check with the people that sort this one out if you can add these slides to the package. I did share them, so see. These are 5 things that can be lifesavers. Some of them you already do, some of them you might not. And it's the one you don't do yet. They're the good ones. So when you say, I feel fed up, or I feel angry, or I feel sad, all feelings are okay, but what would you rather feel like just now? And that's an old yogic technique, really, is a mind switch. It's called a pivot. So I feel like that. Well, how would I rather feel? And then thinking of what would make me feel that new, better feeling, that rather feeling. And then what can I do right now to feel a little bit more like the other feeling? It's scientifically proven. It works. It makes your brain just go the other way and try to just think of something you can do, even just something really little, even just smile. or put a pen in between your teeth like this. If you can't smile, it makes you smile, and your brain doesn't even know the difference. Very good one. When you sit a lot on the computer, I use usually a chopstick. Second one, I can't do this. You probably know this one. Just add a little yet. Because saying I can do that when you actually doubt it, it will backfire. There's no point in saying I can do this if you know you actually can't quite yet. But if you add the yet at the end, I can't do this yet, you soften it and you open the door to actually open to the I can. Okay, next one. I got to do that. How often have we said, I got to pick up my children from school? Oh, I got to drive them to football. Oh, I got to drive them here and here. And that is a draining energy, like I'm the slave, where you can change it so easily. You can change the got, the long phase, into get. I get to drive my kids. And it, as by magic, gives you a pinch of sobering gratitude. Because if you wouldn't have them to drive them, well, that wouldn't be nice. So, got to get. Same with the house cleaning. You got to clean the house, or you get to clean the house. What's the alternative? Living on the street? Then you don't need to clean your house. I rather have a nice house and I get to clean it. Please let me know if any of those are new to you. Just put the number in the chat if you haven't tried that one yet. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Can we change that to I would sleep well tonight? Or I've done so much I can be proud of. Both the same. One feels very different from the other. And when someone, the fifth one, does something really bizarre, you're driving me up the bend with this comment, with this action. And instead of feeling or saying that, that's my favorite thing. Now that's interesting. I didn't see that coming. It works great with my children. I would love to develop it further with my beloved. I'd probably go more like, you drive me crazy. Yes, so with my children, I've mastered it. With my partner, I haven't mastered it. So writing those down is one thing. I'm really good at it. I wrote some good books as well, but always sticking to it. Well, I still listen to my dad saying it's very important for you to make mistakes. And I still made plenty of them. This we already have. That's just a nice little thing here on the right. Kids are the best example. They are always ready to adapt and discover. Adults too can unleash their inner explorer, no matter how set they're in their ways they seem. Embrace endless possibilities together. Embrace play. So I will be here again next week for another hour and a half, and we look at the anatomy of trust. It's beautiful. If you have an hour and a half to spend with me, please come back. I also have a little training course, which is called The Base. It's on my website where you can also contact me afterwards if you wish. And it's a first aid kit for families. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've put together the single best exercises for negative self-talk, for getting new things into your life, for breaking habits, for just like there's breath work in there, energy work in there, and there's not one thing too much. I've minimized it as much as I can. As less done well is better than a lot not done. And complexity leads to overwhelm, and overwhelm leads to inactivity. So this little course that I have on there, actually for you guys here, I have a coupon. And I have it at the last slide, but just in case you don't make it for next week, here we go. There's a coupon code, family, like FES 111, and that makes it less than half price. And it's for life, it's priceless. You can share it with your adult children. It's great for studying because it sorts out your brain and helps you focus. It's just wonderful. So if you don't like it, I'm happy to give you your money back. And it's written on there on every page, and no one has ever asked for their money back. I got lots of thank yous and lots of lovely anecdotes from that course. So please consider it or consider sharing it. And with that, we're coming towards the end there. And I just wanted to, how are you doing there, Erica?
I'm good. I'm back. I'm sorry. I was seeing my endocrinologist, so I had to take a moment.
Thank you.
All is good. And I really appreciate a lot of stuff that you've shared. I want more. So
that is so nice to hear from someone that has done so much work in that field already. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
yeah.
And I'd love to stay in touch, Erica. Just send me a little message on welcome@meltmystress.com. And Miss Denise, I know you have been just quiet on the edge there, but if there's anything that stood out for you, please let me know. And please do
I've been over here taking notes, my dear. That's why I'm so quiet.
Oh,
I have
so
notes.
nice to hear you.
So I learned a lot, and I appreciate you breaking it down into the Smurf, because I was over here with my whole little essay page going on. So now I can put that on my one little index card, slide it in the front of my planner, look at it daily, and execute the plan.
Wonderful. Execute the plan. And if you don't execute it perfectly, so what?
It's okay. It was better than yesterday.
Exactly. At least you have a plan now that's absolutely doable, correct?
Yes, definitely. So I was over here quite aware.
That's wonderful. Fantastic. So I'm back on Thursday for another hour and a half, breaking down the trust. Bring some friends along if you want to, and I'm going to have fun doing that with you. Thank you very much, Elaine, for your support. Do you want to say hi? And Maria.
Hi,
Oh, yes.
hi guys. Hi, Elaine. Take care.
Hello.
See you
I
soon.
hope you learned something, ladies.
I did. I really did. It was lovely to meet all other people. Take care and God bless.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. Yes, wonderful. I shall see you then. And with that, have a lovely family life and look after yourself.